Well, as folks in Arizona know, I've long been a supporter of the filibuster because it is a tool that protects the democracy of our nation rather than allowing our country to ricochet wildly every 2 to 4 years back and forth between policies. The idea of the filibuster was created by those who came before us in the United States Senate to create comity and to encourage senators to find bipartisanship and work together. And while there are some who don't believe that bipartisanship is possible, I think that I'm a daily example that bipartisanship is possible. Not just this trip today and tomorrow that John and I are doing, but the work that John and I and many other of my colleagues in both parties do on a regular basis.
But let's go into a little bit of the history that she, in a few minutes, is going to deny. So during the first half of the 20th century, Southern senators successfully blocked many efforts to pass anti-lynching legislation, including in 1922, 23, 24, 35. That year, the New York Times wrote, "One could hardly have witnessed the Senate scene this week and failed to notice the determination of the group of willful Southerners to prevent action." In 1938, Southern senators again shelved an anti-lynching bill with a 30-day filibuster. They shut down the federal government for a month to protect lynching. Some Republicans continue to filibuster legislation that would designate lynching as a federal hate crime, even now in 2020. Like, we can talk about the history of the filibuster, and we should, but let's also acknowledge it's still used in the same way. It was used to stymie civil rights. It was used to stop black people from having a substantive ability to vote historically. And by history, we mean 70 years ago, and we also mean 30 minutes ago. We mean last week. They're still doing it now. She knows that. She knows that that's the history of it. She knows that's what it's being used for right now. And she's going to pretend otherwise, as we'll see in a minute. But I wanted to give you a chance, Rashad, to comment.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And what we see are old tools being used in a new design. The tool itself is the same. And so the way you use it will be very similar. And we have seen it stop progress time and time again. Now, I also believe Joe Biden doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster. I don't believe Joe Biden will ever want to get rid of the filibuster because he's an institutionalist. He's gone on record about basically not having that as his focus. And I think he appreciates people like Joe Manchin and others who stand up for the filibuster. Well, here's the problem with that institutional background that Joe Biden has that he brings to the presidency. That is going to end up eating his leadership alive because he's leading in the 21st century, not in 1992. The whole idea of bipartisanship in this era is not the same. Remember, if you are for the idea that Donald Trump had the election stolen, and you are for the idea that Americans should have overturned the government in the insurrection, which by the way, the majority of Republicans do, we no longer have a partisan battle. We have a battle against those who are pro-America and those who are anti-America. The fact that you call yourself a patriot and a Republican should not matter to me. If you believe that you should overturn the country and you believe in a myth about the president or former president of the United States, you're not even for the country that you live in.
Yeah, it's nonsense. We're gonna turn to her comments about Jim Crow in a bit, but it's like, I don't know, it makes me think of like a terrible abusive relationship where like finally the guy gets kicked out, but you still give him the ability to like veto her future relationships, her career changes, she can't move if he doesn't let her. Like, wait, why? Why is he still in control when he's not in control? But that is what she is willingly giving to the Republicans. Her and Manchin have decided, and they'll say, oh, it's designed so there are like huge changes, from like one administration to the other, which that doesn't exist. It's not a true concern. What they're concerned about is actual working people ever having power. They want consistency of, sure, sometimes Democrats, sometimes Republicans, but nothing big will ever be done to challenge those with power and those with money.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.